I keep hearing about MGTOW, that there's no solution. People talk about and complain about it a lot. As 100% of those who do say it's the problem because there's no justice out there, so why would anyone want to enter that contract? But there is no solution other than change the laws and stuff. But we need an immediate solution if we're going to like get married or whatever. And I'm going to tell you right now, the immediate solution is you have to marry somebody who will not take the contract to the state. And if they do, realize that they are going to go to hell if they do it. And the only way that you can back this up is with Catholic teaching, which I will show you. Short of that, if you're not Catholic, you just have to find someone who will agree to not take it to the state. But then they because there can be a just separation of some sort, then the whole thing about really believe that they are going to be damned if they do that, that's where it falls flat. So really, when things get bad enough, you have to be Catholic. That's kind of what boils down to, because there ain't no more good old days and there's no more justice out there. It's gone. Marriage is gone. The state will deliver injustice, and the human element of the Catholic Church in the U.S. will deliver injustice. What I mean by that is the state gives you cash and prizes for a divorce, so they incentivize, and the state, or the human element of the church, the bishops will just give you communion and give you a new spouse with the all but guaranteed annulment. So that brings me to the quote, which kind of got all this started. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Let me see if I can get this going. Nah, not that. There. All right, let's scroll down here a little bit. I saw this quote on YouTube because someone was talking about it, and there's like, marriage, never sign a contract with someone who is rewarded for breaking it. That's MGTOW right there. Why would we get involved with this when all the incentive is to break it? Exactly. And you can't change the law because we would have to define marriage and its essential rights and duties which no one's going to do because it's from God. So it devolves to no fault, and it ain't coming back in the state. Okay. And as I said, the state is going to give her cash and prizes for bailing, and the bishop is going to give her communion and an annulment for bailing. So there's all the incentive. And of course, as you know, emotions take over, and that's what happens. So what are we going to do, or how do you get married at this point? And most people just kind of saying, that's not going to happen to me. And everyone starts out this way. Storybook looks good. Everything's cool. And then there's a line. All girlfriends are different, but all wives are the same. So it's going to come out eventually. And this is a way to nail everything down in the beginning and kind of prequel, so that we make sure we're all on the same page. And if you have a God-fearing person you're going to get married to, then it should work out. It's a reasonable bet. It's a reasonable risk. Okay, so let's go on here. So we're going to go through MGTOW, and then I'm going to go through a new acronym. I call it WIGTAB. Hang on a minute. Here, so for starters, let's go back to the beginning. Matthew 19:9, and I say to you, whoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and that committeth adultery. So you can put away your spouse, but they have to be guilty of something, be it adultery or some grave fault. Okay, therefore someone needs to judge this public contract. The only judge we have today is the civil judge who hates marriage. Okay, and the bishop is supposed to be judging this, but he's an enemy of marriage because he just gives it to the state. It says it right there in Casti Connubii 78. He's a enemy of marriage. So Canon 12 of Trent, if anyone says that matrimonial causes do not belong to ecclesiastical judges, let him be anathema. These are all the things we're going to tell the proposed, your fiance or whatever, say, this is what marriage is. Are you sure you want to do this? Because this is going to separate the men from the boys. If the separation case does not belong to ecclesiastical judge, as in the bishop, then anathema. In other words, honey, if you take the separation to the state, you're going to hell. Okay. In 1983 Code of Canon Law. So Canon 1401, by property exclusive right, the church adjudicates that which is connected to spiritual matters, and 1671, marriage cases belong to ecclesiastical judges by proper right. Okay. So, more along those lines, Third Council of Baltimore from 1883 or whatever it is, which is still in force today. It says, we command all married persons that they must not go to the civil courts to obtain a separation without ecclesiastical authority. So you have to go to the bishop before you go to the civil court, not after, before. If you do this, you incur the guilt of grave sin. Okay. And the bishop can decide the punishment. But what I'm kind of getting at with this whole message is the spouses themselves have to take justice into their own hands, because the bishops are out to lunch because they've embraced NFP, which means marriage is love-based and has no rights. So the bishops aren't going to help you. They're going to hurt you. And the state is going to hurt you. Okay. Therefore, it's the man and the woman against all of them. So we have got to all get on the same page before you say I do. And this is how you can solve the MGTOW thing. Okay. You define marriage ahead of time. And if someone doesn't do marriage right, they can't go to heaven. And that's, so you marry somebody who's like that, and now you have a safe bet. It's a reasonable bet. Anyone can freak out on you, so you have to be careful who you marry. But if they are, it's a reasonable risk if they're all on the same page with breaking the contract. Okay. So you have to define the terms of the contract, and you have to define the penalty for breaking it. And the solution to MGTOW penalty is living in a lake of fire for all eternity. That is the disincentive for breaking the marriage contract and moving out or filing for divorce or whatever the heck you're going to do. More along these lines, there's many synods they had around the country in the 20th century to basically talk about this thing. And they're in Arizona, they're in Oregon, they're all over the place. There's a lot of them. But this is one from Providence, Rhode Island, 1952. They said, under pain of mortal sin, Catholics may not approach the civil courts to obtain a civil separation, divorce, or an annulment, unless our explicit permission has been given them to do so. Super straightforward. And this all comes back to divine law, which is what God has joined, let not man put asunder. The whole problem right now is that Martin Luther gave it to the state, and then the state eventually allowed contraception, which means marriage is no longer based on rights and justice, but it's based on love, which means all you can do with it is throw more love at the problem or no fault divorce. And guys are like, forget this, because usually it's the woman's emotions that do all the deciding, and they're 80% of who files. So the men are like, no. Let's continue. Now, I could probably rant on and on about this, but we're just going to go to the next side of the coin, okay, which is all this feminism stuff. So I created this new little acronym this morning, I guess. Instead of men going their own way, women going to avoid babies. This is the other half of it, because women want to get married, but they want marriage on their own terms. They want a little feminism thrown in there too. I want guaranteed, quote, love, and I don't want to have kids if I don't want to, kind of thing. No, that's not how it works. Okay. Let's look at a few Bible verses and other things so we can show that essentially the man has to work and take care of everybody, and she has to have all the kids. Sounds basic, right? But we need to find out why and what the consequences are for not doing this. So in the beginning, as you know, Adam and Eve goofed up, but Eve was kind of the initiator here. And here's what it says. For Adam was first formed, so okay, and then Eve. So Adam's kind of in charge. Whoops, I messed that up. Let me redo that. I just goofed up the thing there. And Adam was not seduced, but the woman being seduced was in transgression. Okay, so now we have a problem. Eve goofed up. She's got to pay back for this. Okay, yet she shall be saved through childbearing. Okay, so just like he has to work through the sweat of his brow, the guy's got to work or he's hosed. She will be saved through childbearing if, okay. So she won't be saved through childbearing if she goofs up. But if she continue in faith, that means she has faith in God to provide, okay, and to provide grace as well, and love and sanctification with sobriety. That means you have to not only have the babies, but you have to raise them in the faith. So if you don't do that, you're not going to be saved. This is a big deal, okay? So the husbands got, everyone needs to be on the same page to solve MGTOW before they get married. You can't take the contract to the state or you go to hell. The wife is going to have a bunch of kids or she's not going to heaven. The reason why we know that 1 Timothy 2:15 says exactly what it says straight up, and because you can, the Protestants and different people who have been trying to uh, shoehorn NFP into this, so they say it means all kinds of stuff. Catholics are not to depart from the literal and obvious sense, except where reason makes it untenable or necessity requires. This is not untenable. And the church has never ruled that this cannot be taken literally. So the Bible is literal unless the church says otherwise. That's what it means. It doesn't make sense any other way. You will be saved through childbearing if you continue in faith, love, and sanctification with sobriety. So if you don't continue in faith, love, and sanctification, you're not going to be saved through childbearing. You won't be saved because you're supposed to have kids. That goes back to the marital debt. St. John Vianney, he's like my hero. And there was some lady who was talking to him. She was a little older and she's, I don't know, probably had kid number 17 on the way or something. And she's like, I'm having a tough time here. And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. Listen, let me tell you something. He goes, if you only knew the women who will go to hell because they did not bring into the world the children they should have given to it. So obviously, he's saying that this is a salvation issue, which comes right from 1 Timothy 2:15. When you get married straight, when you know what you're doing, it falls into place. But now people don't know, and it's a mystery. So what you end up with is this crisis, this marriage crisis, where the stats are way down, and people are afraid to enter this twilight zone contract with no justice. Okay, we're going to bring it back to normal, and this is how it is. Then there's this last juicy quote that everyone hates from St. Augustine. Any woman who does not give birth to as many children as she is capable is guilty of murder. That needs to be, basically what he's saying is you don't have to create as many babies as you possibly can, but as long as the marital debt is being requested and stuff, there it is. So if nature brings that many babies, then that's it. There is no quota to have X number of kids. There's no duty to procreate. But if you start trying to play avoid procreation, that's why I came up with my new acronym, Women Going to Avoid Babies. We got to solve, just like we got to solve MGTOW, we got to solve WigTab. I guess I've rambled here a little while, and that's fine. I can back all this stuff up, and I want you to ask me questions. And as I say, usually, if not always, the difference between me and everyone else on YouTube is I always answer the questions, and I will argue with you and provide good arguments back and forth for 6 months if you like. No problem. So this is my contribution to MGTOW, and I think I'm the only one who's saying, here is your solution. It's time to go to son-in-laws and have a couple brewskis.